HBO Max. Max.
HBO Maxwell Lord.
It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate, oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes. Let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And welcome to the Superhero Slate review of Wonder Woman 1984.
It feels like the last time I saw a movie was in 1984. It's been forever. This is a big, exciting moment for the podcast in this year because the last time we talked about a superhero movie, or to be specific, a comic book movie, was Bloodshot, right?
Yes, Blood's hot. Bloodshot. Bloodshot. And literally, I think it was like a week or two before that was actually the other DC movie this year, Birds of Prey.
Oh, you know what? Wow, this probably isn't a very good sign for the movie at all, but we are just totally forgetting about New Mutants that came out just a few weeks ago.
This is, I guess the deal with New Mutants is, while it is newer when we had to wait like a month maybe it was a month and a half to finally watch it, if not longer. So I don't hold that up because this was actually a scheduled release that we could all sit down and do together, legally, and have a superhero movie watching time, you know.
Yeah, you know, just to season the expectations a little bit more. I think a lot of people were looking forward to this movie, right? I mean, if you look at the predecessor, Wonder Woman 1, that made a big splash for a couple different reasons, right? You know, I don't know if technically if it was the first female-led superhero movie. I think some people might actually give that to Catwoman unless they consider her a villain. But either way, it was a big success for DC or the DCEU or whatever they want to call this current phase of superhero movies that they're in. It was like the first time that they really turned the ship around, right? They were like, oh, wow, no, they can actually do this, you know, directed by Patty Jenkins. I feel like it was a big moment. Like Wonder Woman was here. It finally felt like they got their footing, right?
Well,
with that first film.
I agree with you, but I don't agree with the word they. I feel like it was this was one of the lifeboats broke off and got away from that ship because that ship did not correct itself after that. Let's be honest, the ship as a whole was still barreling towards that waterfall, right? But Patty Jenkins was like, let's get in this boat, let's go the other way. In fact, let's go back to World War I, where no one can touch us. We got a nice little safe bubble here to play in.
But it kind of created this expectation of, wow, they did a good job here. Let's see what the next chapter in the story is going to be, because we were not looking towards Zack Snyder, Wonder Woman, and Batman vs Superman or Justice League. You know, those ships sank, if we could use a lack of a better term. I think a lot of people were looking forward to this movie, not just because it's a sequel, but also it's been delayed just like everything else. We were supposed to get this much earlier in the year. It kept getting delayed. We every single week since the pandemic, we thought that this was going to be kicked to 2021. So it made a big news splash when we were going to be getting it day and date on Christmas Day. And I mean, if you think about Christmas is always a really big movie holiday, right? I didn't really grow up particularly with the tradition in my family of going to the movies on Christmas Day, but I know a lot of people do that. I mean, it's obvious they release movies around that time, so people are going, if not on the day before or the day after, depending on when these movies come out.
It's a universal time frame where people are not working, and you know, your day screenings during, you know, Christmas week up through New Year's could even be full, right? Like this is like, you want to fill your theater seats, this is the time you put out a movie, right? Like, because this is normally the past 6 years has been Star Wars territory. You know, and we've not had that. I think Avatar 2 was supposed to be out this Christmas, and that was delayed. And you talked about this. We've actually been prepping for Wonder Woman 2 since November 1st of 2019 was one of the original release dates. So we're 13, almost 14 full months out since we've been waiting on this movie. And so they've had a lot of time to think about it and work on it and do some stuff with it as well if they wanted to.
Yeah, so this is just kind of another way to say is there's expectations around this movie, right? This is something we've been looking forward to. It's kind of a little bit of a shining light in a pandemic that we kind of get to see something premium for the first time in a long time. So, it's not, I would say it's not so much of a normal situation for this movie. So it's just weird. It's kind of like you got to put all these stipulations out there, right? This just isn't a normal moment. So
what do we say? There's always going to be a little asterisk and a footnote to this movie, right?
Yeah, I think I saw that like HBO, or I don't know if it's technically HBO Max, was made an official statement. I don't know if it was like today or maybe like last night of, Wonder Woman has exceeded their expectations, but you can always assume that, a streaming service that's not giving you hard data, you could just assume that they're lying or they're pushing numbers. So it's just a very untrustworthy source. So we expected 5 people to watch this, and lo and behold, 6 did. So, no, yes. So we may never know, financially how well Wonder Woman would have done, but I would assume it would have had a strong box office weekend and under a normal environment, right?
Well, and it is still in the box office normally around the world. Just I think this is like America's one of the few countries that got this on HBO Max. Because I think if we look at that deal, some of the other countries don't get this. Like we're like the U.S. and our HBO Max is like one of the unique scenarios. But yeah, I think it's still bringing in money. But like it's not a normal, again, asterisk, not a normal release year. This could have, what's the limit? Like how good did Wonder Woman do, Mike? I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't have the original box office numbers for the original Wonder Woman, but it got up there pretty
positive.
good.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was necessarily breaking records, but it was. No one could say it wasn't a success. Critically and financially, I think everybody was very, very happy with how it performed. But this also goes to say that it's also kind of competing with another movie this holiday weekend, another direct to stream property, Soul, which we're gonna be reviewing that on the podcast as well. So make sure you're subscribed; you'll see that in your feed. But it's weird because this is gonna be one of the only times ever in history that these two movies might get compared, right? Yeah. Even if this was a normal traditional box office release, people like put these movies in different buckets, right? I mean, Pixar movies make a lot of their money not on opening weekend, right? They make it over the lifetime of their theatrical release, where these big blockbuster superhero movies, they're raking in almost all of their cash like the first 2 weekends. So I just on Twitter this weekend, I saw these two movies head to head in almost every tweet about films this weekend. So these two movies might end up getting compared in our reviews, but this might be a reason why. This is just a really strange, long-winded way to say of we're still in 2020 and things are still really weird.
Well, I actually had the other. It's interesting. We were talking about this before. I had the other interesting approach that some people were only seeing one and not the other. I was interested to see, talking to people. Some people only have HBO Max and not Disney Plus. Some people have Disney Plus and not HBO Max. But at the same time, knowing how well that Disney literally put out their numbers 2 weeks ago when we had the big reveal for Disney Plus, like. I think the idea of Soul getting more eyes is easily on streaming easily assumed because of how many people have Disney Plus versus how many people have HBO Max at the end of the day. So really, this is a very unique situation where we're gonna talk about both these. We're gonna do little reviews about them, but I think this one's gonna be our more broken down of the two.
Because we have so much more context around the film. I mean, you're listening to the Superhero Slate podcast, right? We love all things superheroes, movies. This is
TV shows and everything in between.
Yeah, we're just basically doing the intro of the podcast again. I mean, we love digging into the meat here. So all of that being said, we're going to talk spoiler free at the top here, just real quick, and we'll let you know when we dive into spoilers. Because like Chris said, not all of you have HBO Max. You may not live in a safe enough part of the world to go see this in theaters. So we'll do spoiler free here at the top, and then we'll dive into spoilers for the majority of the review. So much like we always do, Chris, I have no idea what you think about this movie. We're kind of going in here blind, you and me. So Chris, I need to know what did you think about Wonder Woman 1984?
Well, I feel like I really had to watch the other 1982 movies in between here to really understand. No, I'm kidding. That's a bad joke I've seen everywhere, and I just had to get it out of my system. Okay. At the end of the day, I think Wonder Woman 84 is truly a sequel movie, but even though we delayed a year, this movie is not one of my favorite DC movies. Not even close. I wish it was in an upper tier echelon, but I would give this, if I was going to grade it, and I don't normally give letter grades, this is a C plus B minus range movie for me. And that's, I feel, kind of being generous sometimes, but I got to give a lot of credit to the actors. I really, really enjoyed the actors. Again, these are actors we've not seen once or twice before, right? These are regular. I don't think anyone was new to this, actor wise. So I think that was great. To have them these 4 solid, main actors. But at the end of the day, when I looked at this under a microscope or even at just a magnifying glass while I was watching it, there's a lot of this that just doesn't make any goddamn sense. And I wish I could had more explanations. But my wife is a huge fan of the first Wonder Woman movie. Mm-hmm. You know this, Mike. I'm a Marvel guy, right, through and through. You can look at my room right now. But you
don't need a magnifying glass to look at you.
You actually probably need a wide angle lens to see all this stuff.
They can just smell it on you.
Yeah,
right?
it's
just down the street. They're like,
yeah, I have Iron Man cologne. It's true. But my wife really likes Wonder Woman 1, and even she was like, I wouldn't. She bought the first one. She's like, I'm gonna buy it and add to our collection. I liked it so much, and I'm like, that's great. And she's like, I wouldn't buy this one. And I'm like, that's kind of telling for someone who's like a bigger fan and what their expectations are, rather than me looking at this from a filmmaker point of view. And one of the benefits of being able to watch this on HBO Max is, Mike, when we break into spoilers here in a little bit, I have notes. I took on this movie, and I don't normally take notes on movies.
I think we're gonna need them.
We're gonna have to talk about these things because I gotta really dig into this with Mike, because I was thinking about you the whole time. I'm like, I gotta talk about this. So honestly, at the end of the day, I think Wonder Woman, it's got some great acting. There are a few good action scenes, but none of this feels like it was an earned movie, and I don't know if that's due to editing or how the story was laid out or what's going on. And I'll talk more about it in spoilers, but I just feel like, C plus B minus at best on this film, Mike. So, give me your breakdown. How did you feel? You came off of this, yesterday, Saturday, I believe? Mm-hmm. Okay. Cause I watched it Friday day, like right at noon. I was like, I'm on it. So I got to know what you did a day later. How did you fare?
Yeah. Well, we're going to have a good afternoon, Chris, because we have very similar opinions on this movie. We're not going to be clawing and scratching at each other like we did with some previous Star Wars movies in the history of the show. Yeah, unfortunately, this movie is just so meagering, right? It's just so middle ground, which is the whole reason why I introduced this film the way I did. A lot of people had a lot of expectations for this movie. We were waiting for it. We wanted to see Gal Gadot. I think that's how you pronounce
it. She said Gal Gadot on like an interview the other day, so I don't know where
I've been pronouncing it wrong no matter which way I say it, but we have been waiting for her to return to the screen. Patty Jenkins, I mean, we just got the news weeks ago that Patty Jenkins is moving on to the Star Wars universe now. I mean, she is being catapulted. She is being catapulted into the stratosphere right now. So just very high expectations for this, and then when you sit down and watch it, it's just disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. Now, I had a friend text me that said, "Oh man, is Wonder Woman as bad as everybody's saying it is?" And the only thing I could say is, like, it's not a dumpster fire. Like, this is not like the worst movie of 2020. This shouldn't be anywhere near any Razzie category, right? But it just pales in comparison to what they did with the first one. On Saturday morning, the first thing I watched when I got up was the first Wonder Woman movie, which was conveniently on HBO Max. And I have to say, the biggest standout from that first film to me was the action. It's so much fun. I mean, when the Germans invade the Mascara on the beach and the Amazons are like swinging down on the ropes, shooting arrows. I mean, that's all like badass. I mean, talk about the no man's land scene. I mean, that's so amazing. Mm-hmm. Even that third act kind of CG battle with Ares, the god of war. Now that I watched it, I think that's maybe the third time I've seen it now. It's like, maybe it's not as like generic as I thought it was. There are some cool parts in this scene, but yeah, nothing in the second Wonder Woman film even comes to the heights of the action that I enjoyed in the first film, but I can definitely agree with you that the performances were on point. I mean, obviously we're huge fans of Pedro Pascal here, the Mandalorian himself. I mean, the first thing my wife said when we were watching it, when he walked on the screen, she's like, shouldn't he be wearing a helmet? And I'm like, yeah, he should be wearing a helmet. But his performance is great as
his hair was enough to be a helmet. The 80s hair.
It's so fun seeing him so animated too, right? And just goofing and laughing and just like hopping around because like he's so muted as the Mandalorian. So I love seeing him on screen. I was actually surprised. I did enjoy Kristen Wiig. I enjoyed her performance. I would say maybe the first 2/3 of the film, if you get what I'm getting at here.
We can talk about writing later.
Yeah, so I was actually surprised that she was able to kind of pull off this role, just because everybody knows her as this comedic actress. I know she's done some more dramatic films more recently, but I haven't had a chance to catch them.
Was her last big role? Correct me if I'm wrong, the Ghostbusters movie. I think that's last one we talked about even.
Yeah, I think that might be right. And then obviously we have Gal Gadot and Chris Pine come back, and it was great. All of the returning cast felt just like the first Wonder Woman film, but yeah, when you just get into writing, when you get into decisions, I think this is the first time in a long time my biggest complaint about a film is the plot, right? It's just the plot. I don't know how to review it without talking about it because it's just nothing but spoilers. But it was just disappointing, right? You wanted it to achieve so much more, but you can't be too disappointed with your kid, right? Because like you said, they still got like a C+, B-. I mean, if it's not their favorite class in school, it's okay, just go and concentrate on the stuff that you love. So yeah, it's just weird. I'm not going to be able to sit here and just like really yell at anybody and blame anybody, but
you're gonna give it a nice stern look and then be like, you could do better.
Yeah, it's okay. Just, do some stretching, shake the dust off, come back in the third film. Yeah. It kind of reminded me of those old classic, action trilogies back in the day growing up. And, this was before the internet, before you could talk to strangers online about how you felt about movies. And you would meet up and talk with like a friend and be like, oh no, I really like the second one. Oh, well, I really like the third one. Yeah. Well, I kind of like the first one too. So
this is original Star Wars trilogy conversations right here, right? Either like A New Hope, Empire, Return. Nothing's wrong with any of them, but you like the ones you like.
Yeah. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, that's just where the feelings lie. You just wanted so much more out of it, so you just kind of wonder what happens.
We've seen better and we know better, and I want to talk about what happens. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to mark this right now. You're going to jump in the spoilers, so our time codes are in the thing. Ready, Mike? 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're in the clear. So Patty Jenkins had an interview and said that recently, like it was like last week, and said DC made her Warner Brothers rewrite the third act of her first movie.
Oh.
And she was against that. And that's fine. And what she put out, she liked. Great, as any director should. Now, if they didn't make her rewrite any of this, who's at fault? Is it Patty Jenkins? Because now I'm starting to worry, does she deserve a Star Wars? And should she do a Wonder Woman 3?
Yeah, no, I had a very similar feeling. Usually I kind of go to conspiracy theory that people talk about with George Lucas, right? When he returned to the prequels, that he was this bigger than life character that nobody could criticize him. Nobody could tell him wrong. Nobody on set could say, hey, George, this is kind of a weird idea and maybe you shouldn't do it. Now, I don't know if Patty Jenkins is quite to George Lucas territory when he was approaching the prequels, just within the length of career and what she has accomplished. Not saying she's unaccomplished at all, but, George Lucas was kind of like this weird type of kind of a sample point. But yeah, it makes me wonder, did Patty Jenkins do such good work for Warner Brothers with that first Wonder Woman movie, like we said, kind of turning the boat around, maybe keeping it from sinking, separate lifeboat, whatever boat analogy you want to use. They were obviously like, we got something here. We need to keep her here at Warner Brothers, which it kind of didn't work because she kind of ended up going over to Disney. But then I also saw headlines that she might be coming back for the third one. So who the hell knows? But yeah, it does make me wonder, does she have enough pedigree over there at Warner Brothers for people not to step on her toes anymore?
Well, I wouldn't say it's pedigree. Warner Brothers always has touted themselves as an artist first, director first, right? Kind of studio. Now, that may be come under fire because of the HBO Max stuff they've done. And we've talked about this off, how directors get all uppity for no goddamn reason. It's not their money, but maybe they were like, Patty, you did such a great job. We're gonna pull our reins back. This is what Disney did with the Russo brothers, right? Like Marvel was like, you know what, you did good, Winter Soldier. free reign. Let's go have some fun. Go do what you need to. James Gunn, same thing with Guardians 1 to Guardians 2, right? So like, I don't know if she's larger than life. I don't think she's untouchable, but maybe they just didn't be like, Patty, you've got something in your mind, you're seeing it. We don't want to step on your toes. So if you think it's right, you proved us wrong last time. Let's go this route. So, it's like they say, and as this movie, lightning doesn't always strike twice in the same place. So,
or when lightning does strike twice, it's for literally no reason.
Yeah.
Because the coolest thing that we saw in the trailer for this film was her using the lasso on the lightning. Wow, so cool. I thought that was going to be like creative problem solving of her trying to get to a location or trying to avoid or move something, or like, oh, she's got to like really flex her Amazonian skills. She's going to ride the lightning. What was the point? She can fly. She was flying literally before that scene, so why was she even doing it?
Well, well, actually,
I'm sure you have the note written down on your notepad.
I do. She wasn't flying before that, but I will tell you right now, Metallica's Ride the Lightning came out in July of 1984. Why the hell did they play Metallica's Ride the Lightning at any point in this? Do you realize how much of a synergy that could have been? Like, yeah, sure, we're not putting Metallica or Wonder Woman because that's too out there. I'm like, this is great stuff. Now, let me tell you, I love the 80s aesthetic in this movie. I think it feels thoroughly a 1980s all around here. But I want to talk about the first scene of this movie.
Oh, the mall heist.
No, pre-mall.
Oh, you're talking about
Themyscira.
the Ninja Warrior course, right?
Yeah. So they go on this Themyscira Ninja Warrior course for these women, right? And of course, little Diane is in the lead until she falls off her horse and she has to go get it. Now, question: they said she cheated. Did she really cheat, or did she just have to go get on her horse? The horse ran the whole way. So she didn't really cheat, did she? She just missed this checkpoint, which is like a video game.
It's just kind of like, it's this weird kind of like very basic storytelling of just like, okay, we want to set up our story at the very beginning here with the moral of the story, right? What kind of obstacle is our main character going to have to overcome? It's the, it's the idea of cheating or taking a shortcut in life to what you actually need. And it just didn't really
it never
well.
paid off. It never once paid off. Like, they just put this cool ass scene in there where they're running all over the island, right? Doing their triathlon and shoots, which is cool. It was a cool scene, but like the whole point was cheating. Well, this whole movie wasn't about cheating. They didn't cheat. They wished they had to know that they're to get something, to take something, you have to give something up. They didn't talk about that in this opening scene, which would have been a great way to do so. Didn't do it at all. And then I think it was a way to set up, hey, do you remember this golden warrior with the big wings that we're gonna use for like 2 seconds later? Here it is in a statue form. So
I didn't even catch the fact
that's where they were running to get her.
Oh, I didn't put that together.
Yeah, so the opening scene was just goddamn atrocious. But then we go to the mall scene. So this whole mall bank robbery heist thing, right? I think it was cool. I liked Wonder Woman rushing to say there. She was swinging around with her lasso of truth, doing cool stuff. But why would the other guys in this heist who are across the mall pull their guns? Why wouldn't you just run away with everybody else?
Yeah, and I didn't really understand. I mean, obviously these criminals are dumb and stupid and don't really know how to properly perform a heist, but why did he grab a little girl, right? Usually when you grab a hostage, you hold them and then you back away until you get a door that you can escape from, and his idea was, no, I don't want to go back, so I'm just going to attempt to murder this child. Like, what was his plan, like, really, right? Was it just, I'm going to drop the kid and then run? But that doesn't make any sense because the people on the third floor
I'm not going back. You're
just
literally stuck now holding this child over the edge.
Yeah, it just didn't make any sense, but, chalk that up to stupidity, right? Because we're just a little bit into the movie. You can put up with a little bit of just kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird, as long as there's something cool to go along with it. Because at the beginning here, we do get a little bit of Wonder Woman action, right? The lasso is really, really cool. She's leaning on the lasso a little bit more in this film, and I think it looks fun. We have seen similar heroes that use kind of like ropes for traversal. Like, I was thinking a lot of Spider-Man, especially since we've been playing Spider-Man the video game. So Wonder Woman's a little bit more floaty with the lasso. She's a little bit more elegant, but it looks really cool, right? She definitely knows what she's doing. She's no longer this proto Wonder Woman. She's been doing it for 50 years now, because the first one was in the 30s, right?
No, World War I. It would have been like 1917 or so. So she's been like 60 years.
Okay, so like she definitely knows what she's doing, but the floatiness sometimes looks cool throughout this film, and then sometimes it feels like the people on the visual effects team, the visual effects supervisor, just doesn't quite understand physics, and it makes me think that maybe this could be like a Patty Jenkins things as well, because she at the end of the day she has the final say. Yeah. Like you could be delivering her an action scene that's just like, okay, wow, here's it really grounded with physics, and she's like, no, she's an Amazonian, everything needs to feel a lot lighter and floatier. So can you please go ahead and do that? Yeah. And the supervisor could just be like, I don't think this is a good idea, but the director's telling me to change it. So this is me trying to say, at sometimes the floatiness seems elegant and cool, and then sometimes it just seems like I just feel like the physics engine broke on this video.
I think a lot, to me, from a production, I think that was actually physical stunts, and then they masked the wires out because they wanted the glowy rope.
Yeah, it did kind of feel wiry.
It's very wireframey, so I think they were doing that. Now, I will tell you, of the DC films, the mall scene in Shazam is better. If I were to pick mall scenes out of DC movies, I like that one better. But
I forgot that was a Christmas movie. I could have watched that the last couple weeks, and I forgot to watch it.
Could have Shazam, the Christmas movie, the Christmas special. But it was also weird. Like, why are there two little girls in this thing that go out and get in trouble, like, or get in the way? You know, because she has to push the one girl into the beanbag thing, and then there's one being held over the edge. Like, it felt really weird, this opening scene. Like in the mall.
It was also kind of strange because, like we just said, we've established that Wonder Woman has now been around for a while.
Yeah.
And I understand that there's no internet to really, propagate, what she could be doing, but she's very openly fighting crime. She's in a costume and everything. Mm-hmm. But then the news reporter outside the mall is just like, who is this mysterious person? It's just like, I feel like Wonder Woman would be a thing by now, right? Everyone would know who she is. She's not being some sort of like fly-by-night vigilante.
Well, she also cannot fly, so therefore I guarantee you all this is in D.C. So wouldn't everything in D.C. be associated or attributed to her?
Yeah,
like it's a very small area. It's not like she's going to New York.
You almost expect in these scenes these little girls to kind of have like Wonder Woman costumes on, right? Mm-hmm. They might be wearing their own Wonder Woman tiara, or they're carrying like a Wonder Woman lunchbox. Even if they're bootleg. I'm not saying Diana officially sanctioned this merchandise, but that's kind of what you expect. But they just seem to be infatuated just because she's there, not really from her any sort of legacy.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it was definitely weird. Now I want to. My notes are all over the place here. I want to jump to actual Maxwell Lord, Pedro Pascal.
Yes, there's so much we can talk that's good about this character. Yeah. So much we can talk about where this is the worst parts of the movie come from. Right?
Exactly. So one, how does he know about this magical stone? Like, he just has papers on it. Like, no one else is looking for a magical stone in the world. Like, that was very convenient.
Yeah, this is like a weird crutch. Not crutch, I would say. This is a weird problem that every DC movie always has to solve, right? DC is not grounded in science like Marvel is. And I'm not saying you have to be grounded in science or physics or some sort of space, aliens, make your movie. It doesn't necessarily make it better. It's just a different problem to solve. DC is a little bit more magical, right? Especially with this film, with gods and stuff. So you have this issue where you do need to explain villains and magic, but also not over-explain it because you're just going to get in your own way. So yeah, if you introduce this idea of like a magical rock, you need to explain where it comes from. And they attempted to do that later in the film when they say, oh, it was created by like an ancient god, because they look, inside of that ring and she reads that god language. But we never really get a resolution on that. Like, was it the god of lying that?
Well, it sounded like it was like some sort of version of their Loki, really. But like... Yeah. But like, this guy can find this damn rock, right? The Grand Switch, but he couldn't find oil anywhere in the goddamn world. like oil seems a lot easier to find than your magic rock, buddy. Like, you should probably stick to that.
Yeah, I was expecting the payoff of seeing this god at some point in time, at least in some sort of flashback, or maybe some sort of like tableau or art or something. Or he
could have been the one guiding Maxwell to the rock. Like, where did you get this information from? Well, it happens to be this trickster dude.
Or Diana does her like flashback magic. Maybe she touches the armor and she sees like a memory where we see this character again. It just felt like something that got left on the cutting room floor. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know how much of this characterization of Maxwell Lord or the stone or the magic is rooted in like comic book lore, but I have to say I do like the mechanics of it. I like the idea that if you wish for something, if you wish for something on the rock, it just automatically takes away your most prized possession, right? But when Maxwell Lord becomes the rock, he gets to choose what he takes away.
Right.
And I really, really like that mechanic, but it was very confusing at the beginning. I wasn't really sure what the rules were right away. So I wasn't sure if he had just become a magical genie and he was making his own wishes, but then he was also having other people make wishes, because I like that limitation that he had where he had to force other people to make the wish for him. But it got kind of confusing because when he went to Cairo, Egypt, he wanted this sultan, who was actually played by the actor who is Rami's dad in the Hulu show Rami. And I've recommended the show Rami before on the podcast. So go watch Rami if you want to see some more of that actor doing some really good stuff. So he's like, what do you wish for? And he's like, oh, I want like my ancestral land back. And then he goes, okay, well, I'm going to take all of your oil. And then everybody laughs, but he's like, oh, but I gave the oil away. But if he's making the wish, though, he still should be able to take it. But I guess that's not his anymore, so he takes his security team. So it was really confused. You don't really get an idea of what the rules are until a little bit more halfway through the movie.
And some of it is like instantaneous, but some of it seemed gradual. Like we'll talk about Barbara Minerva in a minute, but like she wished for something and then it wasn't instantaneous. Like she didn't get her power or like the strength for like a couple days. Like
it was kind of like it was like a Freaky Friday scenario. Like, oh, you wake up, things are changing, things are starting to be a little bit different. It's gonna make us sound like super picky, like basement nerds, right? Talking about the wish mechanic in this movie. But if you're gonna do it, you got to do it right. Just pick a direction and stick with it.
That's the MacGuffin, right?
Yeah. If it's going to be like nebulous magic that can kind of do whatever it wants in any sort of way, you got to set up in our mind that like nobody really knows how this works. But it's just like, why does Steve Trevor have to come back in the body of another person? Whereas why do the nukes just appear out of thin air? But then when the nukes disappear, they don't disappear. The nukes actually kind of fall apart. So it's almost like taking back the wish doesn't make the nukes disappear. It just makes them disassemble and disintegrate. So it's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. You're not following the logic that you set up for how this stone works. Are things appearing out of thin air, or are they just stopped working?
You are 100% right, because I wrote here in my notes, do things just like there was this clip that an explosion undid itself in reverse. So are things undoing themselves, or are things like, do they leave the results? Like that guy wished for his ancestral home back, right? He got a wall. The wall really doesn't say this is your land. It's just a wall. So when he renounced his wish, the wall disappeared. So do other things just disappear, or do some things stay the same? What were the end results of these wishes? Like Maxwell Lord's like, I renounced my wish. His wish was to be the stone. Where's the stone now? Did it go back to life? Is it done? Like, is all this over for good? What are the end results?
I couldn't help but laugh. The whole renouncing the wish thing is so dumb, because not only did it feel stupid when you're watching it, it just made me think of Michael Scott on The Office declaring bankruptcy. Yeah. When we were watching it, I just told my wife, she's like, you just can't renounce your wish. There's paperwork you got to fill out. Yeah. It just felt so silly, and I don't understand. I saw some other people agreeing with this sentiment online of just like, why couldn't they just get Maxwell Lord to undo his wish, since he was kind of the crux, he was the fulcrum that set this all in motion. Mm-hmm. Like, why couldn't he just undo his wish and then everything else falls back on itself?
They said
right?
that like they're like, the only way to get this undone is to destroy the stone or get the original person. So if he renounced his wish, the stone's destroyed. So therefore, it should have all fallen apart, right? Right, the logic of this movie doesn't make any sense. It's convenient, sure. It's easy to follow if you don't think about it. And it's fine. It's
like, how can you possibly believe also that Wonder Woman could convince a bunch of people through their TV sets, to undo their wish? Right? That's billions and billions of wishes. That's so much to ask of the audience to believe that could happen. Mm-hmm. That's why it's just so much easier to just pin it all on Maxwell Lord. Just convince this one guy to undo it. But I think the reason that they did it this way is, one, to make Wonder Woman seem larger than life, right? Oh, she's such a powerful hero that she can get the entire planet to be good at once. But also, it just seemed like a really cheap way to keep to keep Kristen Wiig as Cheetah, right? It's just like, oh, well, technically in the movie we never see Cheetah undo her wish, right? Like the scene cuts off just beforehand, so it's just like, oh, this is a cheap way of keeping her as Cheetah. But why does she go back? Right?
Well,
like I wasn't 100% sure if she undid her wish, because she's not a cheetah anymore, but she still has all that grunge look to her. So I was like, okay, well, she's still powerful, but she just doesn't look like a cat anymore. I wasn't entirely sure.
I think that ties into the Pedro Pascal saying, I renounce my wish, takes away everybody else's wishes. I think that's what that was trying to say, but it doesn't do a good job doing it, because I guarantee you Kristen Wiig did not say, I renounce my wish. I guarantee you her character was so ingrained with this new evilness and power that she would never have given it up, even if someone told her to. Now, I think the other thing that they said and didn't really declare is that the lasso of truth was around what's his name's
his
leg.
Ankle.
So it was touching all the people, therefore
everything about that it gets me upset, and it's just because it's like nobody wanted to pay attention to details in this movie. It's like somebody was like, oh, it's a comic book movie, people don't give a shit. But it's just like, you just showed me how difficult this situation was for Diana, right? She's trying to get to him, but he has this magic pulsing off him or whatever, and she can't get to him. She tries to whip that lasso at him like at least 3 times. It doesn't get anywhere near him. All is lost. She's up against the wall. She, like, literally and figuratively, there's nothing that she can do. But then all of a sudden the camera cuts over and then the lasso's around his ankle. How did that happen? Like, how did she get the lasso there? I'm not saying that she couldn't do it. She's a pro at that lasso. She's been using it the whole movie. She has all of her powers back. But you just showed me that she couldn't do it. So what had changed from that scene like a minute ago to now? Like, she never solved the problem. So I don't get it. And then I love like they said, they can't follow any of their own rules, right? You set up this very strong kind of this rule that you have to be touching the stone or you have to be touching Pedro. But then this wacky thing about photons. Oh, I can be beamed to everybody and my presence will be there.
What is this, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory?
I mean, I think the idea is really dumb, but at the very least, if you're committed to this idea of beaming Maxwell all around the world, at least have the people touch their TVs, right? So at least they're interacting physically with the photons, and that's such an easy detail to do. Anybody can reach out and like touch the TV. But I guess, then you have to explain like why the Irish guy in the bar touches the TV and then wishes for the woman to drop dead. Yeah, I mean, like we said, that's the single biggest problem with this movie is the plot. Like nobody was taking it seriously. Well, and then so you just end up like being in these murky waters of nobody wanting to serve the plot.
While we're on Maxwell Lord, the guy didn't like his fucking kid. Let's not pretend his kid talking to him made him change his mind. Yeah. Every time that kid, he was like, oh, it's my weekend again? How many weekends do I have to watch him? And then he's like, kid, I love you. You're like everything I do. And I'm like, you don't like this kid. You don't like your kid at all. Why are you still here?
Hire an actor, a kid actor with a little bit more personality, right? This kid didn't do anything. Like, I'm not saying kids need to be good actors, but I mean, this is Hollywood, right? You can find somebody that can put a little bit more emotion into the role. And if you can't, pick a different fulcrum for the character. Do not use his child, because this actor kid is not working.
Yeah, exactly. It was not good. I mean, Jesus. Maxwell Lord, I again, great actor. I think he really sold his desperation, and like he wants to be like a everyone's favorite person. But like, man, how he got to where he was not done well at all. Now
I was going to say, maybe let's move on to the next, second biggest problem in the movie. And I want to say it's probably Steve Trevor, right? I mean,
I was going to go to Barbara, but yeah, we can do Steve Trevor. Let's knock on these guys first. So Steve Trevor, there are 30 other ways you can bring Steve Trevor back without putting him in some other person's body and then rotating the camera around and showing us Steve Trevor for the rest of the movie.
Because really, it just makes Diana look like a crazy person, right? Yeah. Like, you could just assume like she's going insane. Like, do people actually see Chris Pine, or do they see that dude and she's just the only one that sees him? I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, and that's a plot that you could have taken in the movie, but obviously they didn't go that way.
They didn't really set that up either. Like, it's I just thought it was some crazy dude, or he was going to transform into him, really, but like it was literally just he's in somebody else's body, and that's the way she sees him. so that's the way we have to see him for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, we so easily could have believed. He said, "Oh, the last thing I remember was it blowing up in that plane, and then there was nothing for a little while, and then I woke up on a park bench in front of the Washington Monument." We all would have been totally okay with that.
Some things in this magical world appear out of nowhere. Some things inhabit another person's body. Where did that other person go? Is he dead now? I mean, I know he's back at the end, but in that meantime, like this. Not to talk about the movie Soul, but a lot of parallels there. But like it's just, where's this other person? What's he doing? Now, I will tell you, I did say out loud, I would watch an entire movie of Steve Trevor adjusting to the 1980s because I was like, this is probably my favorite shtick because Chris Pine is selling it so well.
Well, it was fun, and it was like a role reversal, right? You know, when we see Diana in the first film, he's adjusting her to human life. This is what the real world is. This is what clothes are. You know, it makes me think of Soul. This is what pizza is.
Yeah,
right. You know, they were doing that. So now the script was flipped, and that was one of the more enjoyable parts of the film, where he's just trying to get used to modern life. He's just amazed by the subway, and
he's taking it very seriously. Like, he's not mocking it. He's not like he's not like, oh my god, I would never have thought of this in a million years. But he's like, yeah, I'm trying. Like, I couldn't ride this bike down the street. I don't know why, but that's fine. I'll walk. Like he was literally trying very hard to adjust to it, and I liked watching it. Like, he didn't do one of those things where Diana was taking his hand and showing him everything. Like, he was running ahead and looking at everything, like in the Smithsonian Museum, and she was just like very amused by his musings, if you will.
My wife rightfully had a few complaints about some things that he was fascinated with. I guess in one scene he was going on and on about how much coffee he had, and we both agreed, like, they had coffee. We've had coffee on this planet for a long ass time, so.
Maybe it's the speed at which he could, because he said several pots of coffee.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
I was trying to reason, like, oh, maybe he got instant coffee, but we really never got to see that.
Yeah.
And then also, he was fascinated about a lot of pockets on his pants, and then that sent my wife off. Just like, dudes have had pockets all over their pants forever, especially like military people. Like, they have pockets out the wazoo, so it was a strange thing to be noticing. But some of those other things were pretty funny. Like, I did like the exercise bike bit. I mean, we saw the trash can bit in the trailers, but I still thought it was pretty funny. The escalator bit was fun as well. He was just trying to figure that out.
I thought of you when I saw the break dancing scene. He was like, because they like spun around, he like flinched at it, and she's like, no, it's fine, just keep going. I think, and then at the he had kind of an Indiana Jones scene, like one of the bigger action scenes, right, was in Egypt. Whatever they were doing, I think it was Egypt, right? Because there were the pyramids, like driving the car. It felt like Indiana Jonesy of the driving down the desert road and doing stuff. It felt, it was very isolated from everything else. But I think
we cannot talk about Steve Trevor without bringing up the invisible jet. Everything before and after it is really exactly the groan. Exactly. So, like I said before at the beginning of the movie, if you're watching a movie that you're really enjoying, lots of things are popping off and going right. You can easily let some things go, right? In my head, I was thinking like, oh God, he's about to fly a modern plane. There's no conceivable way he could do that, even if he was a pilot back in the day. Even if he understands how flight works at a mechanical level, he has never been in a jet before. There's no way the console is the same. The last plane I saw him fly, besides the one at the very end of the first one, that bomber, which technically he was just barely flying because he was just going to blow it up. It was like a plane made out of canvas, right? Yeah. It was like literally barely removed from a Wright brothers plane. So I was like, okay, I can let this go. I can let it go that he knows how to fly a jet just because it's going to move the plot along, right? We're just going to get over to Egypt. I know that there's going to be an action scene because it had been a while. I was looking at my figurative watch. I was like, it's been a while since we've had an action set piece. The action is my favorite part about the Wonder Woman franchise. I'm looking forward to the next set piece, and I just need to get there. So fine, he can fly the plane. And then they're in the plane, and I guess I'll let you talk about the invisibility. But they're just like, oh, look, it's the 4th of July. Oh, right, duh, it's the 4th of July. It's just like, really? Really? I mean, it's, I don't know. They should have just been like flying over a theme park or something. They have fireworks all the time. It's just like, oh, I forgot it was like the nation's holiday, right? Aren't you a pilot? Oh, maybe we should have talked about this for a second, that it was this holiday. I don't know. So talk to me about the invisibility, Chris.
So normally she has a physical jet that is just invisible to the eyes, right? Like mechanically invisible. My thought was, again, I want to say my favorite line in this was, he says, well, shit, Diana, in this scene, which was one of my favorite lines, by the way, because he found out about radar. I thought they were getting maybe into like the way she walked onto the runway very astutely, like
confidently, like I almost thought she owned the place, right? Like she
had a
secret
badge
billionaire.
Really. I thought she was walking into like something. She's like, hey, we've been working on this technology to make stuff invisible, is how I thought this was going to go, right? Like, I'm like, oh, she picked this jet, or these planes specifically have invisibility. They were testing different ones. Perfect. No, she is apparently just waving her hands around in her lap to turn things she touches invisible. But not everything's invisible. Just the outside of the plane is invisible. You can still see everything inside.
I appreciate the confidence and the effort of trying to make the invisible plane serious, right? Yeah. It's always been kind of a goofy thing that's been made fun of. I think Family Guy's poked fun of it. I'm sure Robot Chicken has poked fun of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because in the classic comic books, she's just like sitting in thin air, flying around, and it's just kind of goofy, right? So I was like, oh, wow, I can't believe they're going to do the invisible jet. This will be like a funny little nod, wink, wink to the comic books. And then when they pull it off, it's just ineffective, right? It's just like, oh crap, there's radar, but then all of a sudden they're off the radar. Like, why is like nobody like more shocked and trying to follow this up? And also at the same point is like, just don't make it a thing. Like, you could have dropped the idea that there's air traffic controllers. You could have totally dropped the idea of the invisibility jet. And then just have them flying. Like, it just felt like conflict that was shoehorned in to make the jet invisible.
An ability she's picked up in the past 60 years that she just somehow happens to use it. Didn't use it any other time. Like, it was just, hey, I got this ability I've been working on. Oh, boom, you're invisible.
That should have been how she solved the problem at the very end with Pedro Pascal. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but you have a lot of really well-trained, expensive writers at your hand. Maybe she made some sort of secret MacGuffin invisible and that tricked him or something like that. Like, make a wall invisible and have him walk into it, or put a rake on the ground and make it invisible. I don't know. That would have been cool to see followed up.
And it was completely dropped after this, right? After Egypt, completely dropped. And then she can fly. Like 15 minutes later, she's like, I don't need no invisible plane, I can fly. So I guess that's the last we see of an invisible plane, literally and figuratively.
And the flight thing, if you want Wonder Woman to start flying eventually, that's fine. If you want that to be part of her character, because that is part of her character in the comic books and a lot of the animated stuff, I would have been totally fine if she stayed on the ground. Because if you're really looking at this canon wise, like, why wouldn't she flying in Batman vs Superman or Justice League? Yeah. But if you want to create this whole other universe with Wonder Woman, I'm totally okay with that, because those ended up being a bust for the character. But it just, like, what problem did it really solve? Like, obviously there's like a ticking clock with Pedro Pascal, but it never seemed that pressing. Diana has always seemed superhuman, was always resourceful. I mean, they picked up a freaking jet to get to Cairo, and it seemed like no time at all. I don't know exactly how fast the jet can fly, but it just seemed like it wasn't a problem that needed to be solved, right? You could have just easily just had her cut to outside of that facility, right? I never thought like, oh, she's never going to make it there on time. I hope she learns how to fly. She could have just swung on lightning all the way there.
let's pump our brakes here, because
all right.
Because there are where did she learn to whip lightning? Okay, was that in the first movie?
It was at lightning whipping school, Chris.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Secondly, she's got a damn metal outfit with wings. Do you think the wings could have flown her there? I would have not been surprised at all if she like came in flying with the wings, right? Like, literally, like, okay, the suits helped her fly. Perfect. This suit lasted all of maybe 5 minutes, right? Like, it, like, she used it to block some hits from Barbara, and that was it. I'm like, this is the waste of fucking setting the suit up for it to be some masterpiece. Like, literally, she didn't even use it to beat Barbara. She electrocuted Barbara.
Yeah,
in the water.
It would have made more sense too if she needed the suit before she renounced her wish, right?
Yeah.
Because she needed that extra edge because she was losing her power. So the suit just seemed wasted, and it was a bit of a bummer, because when they did reveal that suit in the trailers back in the day, I saw a lot of people online who were really hardcore Wonder Woman fans going, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're doing the suit. I can't believe they're bringing that suit to screen. This is going to be amazing." And wow, did it not do anything? Yeah. I mean, this superhuman suit was really just kind of destroyed that easily by a cat,
We'll talk about why this suit was introduced, but I want to talk about this cat lady.
Okay.
So I'm going to draw a parallel here. I said in the middle of this movie out loud. Have you seen The Amazing Spider-Man 2?
Yes. Yes, Jamie Foxx. I was getting Jamie Foxx vibes.
This is this is the Electro character. Again, some very, very timid nerd who wants to be very social and like everybody suddenly gets powers, and then the power corrupts them as it goes to their head. Like
I will be fair to this movie and say, even though I wasn't a big fan of it overall, I think they did do a better job than Electro.
Well, I agree.
Spider-Man 2.
But there's a very a hard parallel where I'm like, this is it. So because she had chances to redeem her humanity throughout this, even she was feeding the homeless guy, right? Then he sees her almost murder that creepy stalker dude. Sure, he deserved it, but she's like, mind your business. Not oh my god, what have I becoming? She had no struggle with this evolution at all, which was weird.
I thought we might be getting a little bit of a switcheroo, right? That they made her character to be such a positive force in the world at the beginning. I was like, oh, maybe they're going to kind of do a little MCU for us, and it's going to be like the Skrulls, where oh, Cheetah's actually going to be good, and they're going to team up to fight Pedro at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And they could have done fake scenes in the trailers, but really nothing. So when she goes through all this, and she's like, I don't want to give up anything. Fine, whatever. But then she gets a second wish. The only person in the whole thing to get a second wish, right? So everybody gets one. Tell him, Peter. Apparently, everybody gets one. Is that she's like, I want to become an apex predator, which is a cheetah.
What? This was something I kept bringing up to my wife throughout the entire film, leading up to it. I was just like, at some point in time, Kristen Wiig becomes a cheetah. And I'm really curious how they're going to pull it off, because that's such a goofy thing, right? That's rooted in very kind of gold age era comic books, right? Somebody turning into a cheetah. So how are we going to pull that off? When she says apex predator, how does it turn into a cheetah? I was almost expecting it to be a prank on her, right? Yeah. Where Maxwell Lord is just trying to get her out of the way, and maybe he looks at a statue of a cheetah and is like, oh, that's what I'll do, I'll turn you into a cheetah. I need this to happen quickly. But she wasn't obsessed with cheetahs. I know she liked her cheetah heels at the beginning of the movie, but you almost expect to go into her office and she's more of a zoologist, right? But she was into minerals and gems. Right. I thought she might be more infatuated with animals, and she really wasn't.
No one in their right mind thinks a cheetah is the king of the jungle.
Yeah, it's a lion.
It's a lion, right? So, and I think she's the only person maybe in this who physically changed as well. So it was just a very weird, and people have complained about the CG with her. It didn't bother me. I mean, I'm not of other. There are worse CGI things, but
it only bothered me because it didn't look like Kristen Wiig.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seemed like they made this scene first, and then they went out and looked for an actress, because I didn't get Kristen Wiig vibes from the CG character at all. And the end fight scene with her wasn't too exciting. At first they were swinging on the power lines, but yeah, it was just okay, well, she's swinging on the power lines, she's swinging on the last. Who's got the upper hand here? I'm not really tracking what's exactly happening here. Why is the cheetah so strong? I mean, I just didn't really get it. Why doesn't Barbara or why doesn't Diana have the upper hand here? She's got her powers back. I just didn't understand what made Cheetah so special, really.
It was again a hard cut from I want to be an apex predator. Bam. Well, now you're a cheetah with superpowers. Okay, great.
Try not to laugh hysterically.
Yeah, thank you very much. The whole thing just felt like the Electro character, the parallels. Again, I agree. Kristen Wiig. I mean, even Jamie Foxx is a good actor, but I think the writing for this, oh no, I don't want to give up my better life, was better than Electro will accidentally becoming electrocuted and becoming a villain. But that parallel was, I was like, man, this is Amazing Spider-Man 2 through and through. At the end of it, so it was just awful. So let's end this. I think the last character is of course Diana, right? Gal Gadot, whatever you want to call her. She does a great job in all this. I think she's a great Wonder Woman, and I can't fault her as an actress with everything kind of falling apart around her in this movie. I think she sells it throughout the whole thing, kind of thing. As Diana Prince, the confident person who's researching stuff, but also saving people and being Wonder Woman. It's just weird that she was obsessed with Steve Trevor for 60-something years.
Yeah, it really made you think, why are we in 1984? Besides the fact that this is when Maxwell Lord finds that stone, what is so special about this time in Gal Gadot's life? Was she really just kind of going through the motions for that long, just in normal human society, until something special came along? Like, it makes you think, like, really, is there nothing that happened between the first film and the second film that's worthy of a movie? It made a lot of sense putting this in the 80s, because you don't have to worry about butting up against, the Justice League and Batman vs. Superman. You kind of get to tell Wonder Woman's own story without bringing in all of these other superheroes. But I was really craving something extra special out of the film, right? Like, we're so used to these second or third phase Marvel movies, like bringing in like a duo or bringing in another character or somebody else, like to round out the cast with a little bit of X factor. And this movie is kind of really missing the X factor. It was the post-credit scene was kind of fun, bringing in the classic Wonder Woman, who was actually the original. I don't remember the character's name.
Linda Carter played Asteria. This is the lady who had the golden armor, and that's why the golden armor was really brought into this, to bring in Linda Carter at the end of the movie, I think. And I'm like, that was kind of not fun.
I mean, those are the things that I love.
Yeah.
The most about superhero comic book movies, right, is when they branch out and they're doing like little cameos, or they're doing connections to other stories.
She should have been in the movie. It's like a scene. Like, how do you beat this, Asteria? Tell me your secrets.
Yeah, that would have been fun. I just felt so disconnected from this film. I just really never got into it. At the very beginning, I did like the idea of Diana just kind of being this wayward soul, right? I was kind of digging that vibe of, she eats dinner by herself, she goes to the office, she saves some people on her side, but like, really, what's it like being somebody that never ages in the human world, right? If you fall in love, you're always going to be the same age, you're always going to look the same. It's really hard to connect with people, because you can't tell people the real truth about you. They even showed a picture of her with the original assistant, that was aging. I don't remember the actress's name.
Look, let's see. If they would have started the movie with her funeral and be like, it's 84 and all of her original friends have died.
Yes.
Would have been like, that's the point right here. That's why it's 84. That's the perfect
example. Yeah, that's why we're here. So it's just like, I was really interested in that. Like, oh, what is that like to be Diana? But then all of a sudden we go off on this weird adventure that, just doesn't make any sense, doesn't really have any rules. She seems very selfish to bring back Steve and leave him around and not think about any of the consequences, right? She seems to be more of a fully fledged hero in person. It's hard for me to imagine her being that naive, even though like she loved him that much, right? Like, obviously I've never dealt with the death of like a romantic loved one like Gal Gadot dealt with, so I guess I can't impose my own feelings on it, but like, if it's been 60, 50 years, I feel like she would have moved on a little bit, right? I mean, like, I don't want to be that type of person that says like, oh, your loss is meaningless, but there should have been a little bit more development in her life over these years.
And she would have been at least smart enough to be like, look, I can't keep you forever. I've become better, since you've been gone, I've learned a lot as well. So like, I can't keep you forever. Like, she didn't have that selflessness. I mean, I know she made a big deal, like, I've never asked for anything, but at the same time, I was like, have you not grown since 1917 or whatever the first movie was? Because I feel like you should have at this point.
Yeah. But I mean, if we brought it back around to the actors, the best part about this film and this technically franchise now that they are building are the performances are all really, really great. It would be insane if we ever saw Chris Pine again. Do not bring him back. He was brought back very ham-fistedly here. So we know he's not going to be returning, or they're just putting the last nail in the coffin, in my opinion. But Gal Gadot, great performance. Kristen Wiig, I don't really know how that's going to develop moving forward, but she's a very, very good actor. Well, Pedro Pascal was amazing. We got to go back and see some of the original Amazonians on the island, like Robin Wright. So all of that stuff is great. There's so much good going on with this franchise and this universe, but this one they just missed the mark, right? They just missed the mark. But Patty Jenkins, they should all consider themselves very, very lucky that this did come out on HBO Max. Now they can obscure the story, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to bow down to the box office numbers. They don't have to reveal the real truth of this movie. But at the end of the day, we just nailed this movie hard for a while. I think we've been talking about maybe about an hour about how much we didn't like this movie, but I do need to come around and say this was not an awful movie.
No.
Man, do parts of this movie just get you frustrated, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of... Here's the thing, and I think we talked about at the beginning, is there's so much potential with Wonder Woman. We know how good it can be. So why did we get this? Why did we get this piece where it's like a little vignettes of things that, fan service really throughout the whole thing? Like, oh, you got a fanfic about Steve Trevor coming back? Well, here it is. Here's a cool thing for the invisible jet. Oh, now she can fly. Boom, roasted. So there's just a lot of pieces that don't connect to the big whole. Like you said, there's no overarching. The plot is there, but how do you get there is very, very disconnected. I would tell you the only other thing I would change in this is I would have brought Linda Carter in as Hysteria earlier, and Wonder Woman goes and finds her, and she tells her, hey, this is the guy that created this magical stone, right? And here's how you beat it. And use my ancient wisdom to help you, rather than just be like, oh, we'll throw her in the end credits catching a pole.
Maybe she could have been like the host of the games, right? In the trophy giving ceremony, maybe she's there delivering it, but then they have to change her backstory.
Well, she'd have to figure out how to get out. Because she's been out in the real world for thousands of years, she would have that experience, right? I think there's a lot of, they could have used that and tapped more into Themyscira and Wonder Woman's history and pantheon of gods, when they just said, no, this time it's a rock, dude. It's not even a real rock. It's just a fake rock, according to the mineral enthusiast, if you will.
Oh, yeah. That was confusing for me, too. I had to ask my wife. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Is this rock fake? Is it made of, did somebody just pour it out of acrylic, or is it just a normal rock that has no value to it? So it was a very weird way to describe the rock when we first saw it.
Yeah, but you're right. Overall, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst thing I've seen this year by far, but I think that we've seen so much good come out of Wonder Woman as a whole, and she was a bright shining light in the DCEU. To see it just do something so mediocre is disheartening at the end of the day.
It's funny, the way, if you, depends on how you look at money and payments, right? I'm going to be having HBO Max no matter what, right? I love their catalog. I want to watch the stuff that Warner Brothers, AT&T, corporate conglomerate owns, right? So technically the way I look at it, I got to watch Wonder Woman 1984 for free. But as we mentioned at the top of the show, not everybody has HBO. Not everybody has HBO Max. So would I tell somebody to sign up for the service specifically just to watch Wonder Woman 84? Maybe not, but I would say the sell is more, there's so much more on HBO Max that I think is very, very great.
You can watch both Wonder Woman movies for your $12.50.
Yeah, if you want awesome comic book stuff, go watch HBO's The Watchmen, right? You can watch that with your HBO Max subscription, and then you'll get a little bit of Wonder Woman on the side, right?
The Wonder Woman original TV show from the 70s with Linda Carter's all on there now.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So you can get all your Wonder Woman on there. Whether you like it all or not, that's up to you, but it's there.
Yeah, I think the first thing I did after the movie was over, I was like, okay, I can finally go out on the internet, see what people have been talking about, because I was dodging so many spoilers, Chris, because so many people got to this movie so quickly, and I had to wait a day, and so I was like, oh, what's everybody thinking? And I think I checked the Rotten Tomato score, and it was sitting about a 71, and I saw that, and I was like, I can agree with that. That's 71.
It's dropped.
Really? Oh, okay.
It went from certified fresh to below certified fresh.
Okay. So, but when it was at that 71, I was like, that feels about right. So, yeah, it's a little unfortunate. Definitely a dip in the franchise. I saw somebody describe it very, very well. If this was a superhero sequel, this is more of a Thor: The Dark World. And I was like, yeah, that seems about right.
Patty Jenkins turned that down.
That's very true. But they were able to turn Thor around, but they used a different director. They went a totally different range. They pretty much totally changed the characterization of the character. But that's not the problem in this film. It's the plot that's the problem.
You mentioned, hey, well, now we have this world set with these characters. The next movie's not going to be in the past anymore. It'll be in the future. So that's another 40 plus years. So what are they going to do with that? Just forget this one ever happened? Sure, why not?
Yeah, it makes you think Jason Momoa's got to pop up in her movie, right? Somebody like Shazam's got to show up. There's got to be some sort of DC synergy, because that is that is the apex of these movies. Like, forget Apex Predators, Apex superhero universes. You got to bring in another superhero, right? I want to see some awesome team ups in the future. So
even Captain Marvel brought Nick Fury into the fold and de-aged him for a whole movie, so they'd have a team up, right? I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's possible in the 80s to bring somebody in there. I would have liked to see a cameo from either a young Clark or a young Bruce. Like saying what their wishes were, right? Like, literally all these characters, I think, maybe except the Flash, were around in Cyborg in the 84. So they could have literally cut to those characters and be like, what did Bruce Wayne wish for? He wants his parents back. You know, how does that happen? And I mean, what does Superman wish for? He wishes to be normal, kind of thing. Like, there's opportunity they could have used.
Talk about the cataclysmic waves of the universe, right? We talk about the blip in the MCU and how that just changes everybody's life forever. Like, nothing got reversed. We didn't roll back time. Yeah. Everybody saw a wall come out of nowhere in the middle of Egypt, right? Everybody had these things happen, and then things, vanished. Sometimes some things disintegrated. So
some guy's got a farm in the middle of DC now. I don't know.
Yeah, but then it was blipped away. So is the cow poop still there? I don't know. But I don't know exactly how you build on this movie specifically, but they're obviously going to be making a third Wonder Woman film. They can obviously still turn it around. Do we think Patty Jenkins is the one to do it? I don't know. Nobody is above criticism, and I'm not trying to be like an armchair quarterback going, oh, me over here sitting on this podcast telling this director how to do their job. But it's just like, nobody's safe. Any all-star director that makes something amazing, the next thing they make could always go the wrong way. So that's actually one thing that I really love about Hollywood and the movie industry and TV. It's just, you never know what's going to pop off. You never know what's going to sink. You don't know what obscure person's going to come out of nowhere and make somebody amazing. You don't know if a director who's made stuff like Happy Feet and kids movies for years comes back and some may say an elderly state and give us Mad Max Fury Road. You never know what's going to happen. You can't predict it. Never bet on something happening in Hollywood because you're going to be wrong. So I hope things change. I hope things turn around. Maybe Patty Jenkins just needs to move on to something new and is going to make the best Star Wars movie that we've seen in years. I always have hope, but I can always be a little nervous, right?
Yeah, I'm going to start being a little nervous. It's not necessarily bad, but like, what do you do with a like, you're given the golden child of a franchise and you just give us something standard. So we'll see. All right, Mike, that's our review for Wonder Woman. Let's wrap it up. We got some other stuff to be going, so people know what's up. Where can they find you?
Oh, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram and Twitter, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
And you can find me on Twitter, Valdan, Valdan, or Instagram, Valdan87. People want to know more about our show, our regularly scheduled news program. Where can they find that at?
Oh, you got to visit superheroslate.com. That is the best place to find everything that we do on the show. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking about Soul here in a second. And if you're subscribed, I guess it depends on what order Chris uploads the podcast. So if you're watching it in an order, I don't know if Soul's going to be next. Just look down at your phone. It's not that hard. But you got to head on over to superheroslate.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. Reach out. We love hearing from you. What did you think about Wonder Woman? I am not going to be offended if you say you liked this movie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be surprised if you said you hated this movie. This movie's kind of all over the map. It's in this weird zone. So what did you think about Wonder Woman 1984? Did you have HBO Max? Did you seek it out? Were you a weird person that was somehow able to see it in theaters? That changed your experience of it? Reach out, let us know. We'd love to talk about it on the show because we're here. We're here every week, folks. We're here all the time, no matter what, talking about news. So if you want to be a super fan of the show and show your support, all you got to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week. And we're in 2020 with a couple episodes here, so stay tuned for our review of Soul and also just the normal superhero news that we talk about every week. We'll be recording that soon as well. So we love you guys.
All right, we'll see you.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.
All right, let's do this. 3, 2, 1.